And now for something completely different. I have in front of me some things I don't normally have here at the church, but it brings to mind a story. Remembering back to my time back in college, and I'd like to share a wonderful person and something that he shared with us. And I haven't asked him about it, so I hope he doesn't mind, but I had a roommate named Daryl, and we both belonged to a Christian fraternity at Georgia Tech. And at one point, our fraternity decided to have an odd form of just a talent show, just something informal, so goof off a little bit of music and antics and stories and things. And Daryl lived nearby. In Atlanta, he ran home for part of that weekend and brought back a box of things. Daryl brought back a box of toys from his childhood. And he shared, when it was his time, he shared some of the stories of the toys. It was delightful. Daryl is a natural storyteller. He's very charismatic, and he just captivated us for probably 15 minutes, rambling on, pulling things out and telling us about what that was like when he was a kid, from Legos and models and bits and pieces. And we were enthralled and entertained, and it helped us get to know Daryl in a way that we hadn't before. And I ponder that element of telling stories. And remember that when I was a little bit younger and had two young boys, Zach and Josh are now much older, we enjoyed having some story time in our home. Sometimes we would stay up a little bit later at night and we'd turn the lights off and get a flashlight and make that into a sort of that spotlight. And Zach in particular would enjoy sort of being on stage and telling a story of some kind, making up something. And it could be part of a scary thing or a pirate story. It could be who knows, whatever it might be, but it was his story of the night. And other times we said, here's some things we want to remember. How do we remember the perfect day and the thing that we did and how we enjoyed it? Stories. It's a reminder that in the Bible, we have many stories. And sometimes they're told to us and sometimes shared with us. From the book of Exodus, chapter 13. Moses said to the people, "Remember this day on which you came out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, because the Lord brought you out from there by strength of hand. No leavened bread shall be eaten. Today, in the month of Abib, you are going out. When the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivites, the Jebusites." He goes through and he says, as we reach the end of that passage, "You shall tell your child on that day, it is because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. It shall serve you as a sign on your hand and as a reminder on your forehead, that the teaching of the Lord may be on your lips. For a strong hand the Lord brought you out of Egypt. You should keep this ordinance of your proper time from year to year." The telling of the story. The telling of the story of the Exodus, but the telling of the story of the Exodus is just only part of the story of the Bible. And the Bible is the story of our faith. It's the story of God's love for us, God's story of God's love for all mankind, and God's dream for us to live in community and love for one another. It is God's story for us. But it's one that we pass down. We see in the book of 2 Timothy as well, Paul mentioning to Timothy to remember that which he was taught by his parents and his grandparents and their love and their faith. So it's a reminder for us today. How do we tell our stories? How do we listen to them? Not just stories of faith, but those are wonderful. How can we tell our stories, even our family stories? Can we take some time maybe in this season where things are a little bit different and maybe we have a bit more time at home to take an evening, take part of an evening and tell stories. Tell stories of what is and has been. Maybe tell some stories of what you hope to be. And listen to those stories. Maybe it's stories from the parents sharing what life was like when you were a kid, or what you wanted and what you dreamed and what came of. Or maybe it's the story from the kids of what's going on today, or what they hope to be, or what they dream of the future. Maybe it's telling a favorite Bible story, asking your child or grandchild if you have one. Maybe it's live, maybe it's over something like Zoom or one of the phone apps such as a Skype, but to be able to share a story and listen to their story and then talk about what that story means to you. I think that's part of what God calls us to be. It's part of being a community, to share our stories, stories of life and stories of faith. That's our message today. Amen.